Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Our episodes air every week, and today's episode is on a really great topic called intimacy. And if you've ever been around the rooms of recovery in any way, shape, or form, you will hear this word, intimacy, broken down to into me see. But the idea of intimacy has changed tremendously for me in my recovery, and I'm sure for you, Nelson, over the years. I met Nelson 17 years ago. I was traveling back and forth from Houston, Texas to Las Vegas, and I wasn't even sure I was going to live here yet. And we met at a recovery event, and I didn't think anything of it or anything like that. For some reason, I just met him. I met his wife. I was engaged at the time. And we became friends, but we never really got to know each other. You know, I didn't know what your deal was, or you didn't know what my deal was, and whatever. And then over the years, we just kept seeing each other over the years and stayed friends. We had common friends. And it wasn't until this recently that we really started to really get to know each other. And what's amazing about that is that we both know that 17 years ago, us would never have been able to be so open and honest and intimate in our sharings with each other, you know, about our lives and what's going on and who we are, and really feel like seen and heard by each other. You know, like I certainly, I'll speak for myself, I certainly wouldn't have. So I am, as you guys know, 25 years clean and sober off of drugs and alcohol, and he is 22 years clean and sober. And so there's been a lot of change, you know, in recovery, even before recovery, of what intimacy even means. You know, like before recovery and well into recovery, it's easy to think that intimacy means sex, you know, like, right? I mean, well, we were intimate, okay? That means you had sex. No, it doesn't at all, you know, and the idea of what real unconditional love is, I knew nothing of unconditional love before I got into recovery, and everything was transactional in all of my relationships. You know, my family relationships especially, and my friendships, my work relationships, and my romantic relationships. Everything was, I'll do for you, you do for me. I'll sacrifice, you sacrifice. And there wasn't any true understanding of what it takes to really create and experience what real intimacy, what real unconditional love is, you know. And it wasn't until, you know, getting into recovery and starting to open up and trust another human being, telling them my story, and without needing it to sound a certain way so that I can get something, so I can use it to manipulate, but really truly for the purpose of understanding, finding out what's driving the bus. Why am I so multiply addicted? Why am I so, why do I have such a hard time with life? And being able to let another person in, terrifying at first, you know. And then as we open up, as we're more honest with ourselves, as we're more honest with another human being, as we make peace with things, as we start to understand and seek to understand other people that we've may held great, huge resentments towards for a long time, we learn love, we learn tolerance, we learn forgiveness, and then turning around and giving it away, you know, doing the same thing that's been given to us with other people to help them heal and to see them defrost, you know, from the icy guard that they were adorned with, to be able to let me in, to trust another person, to be able to give that gift to another person. Like the levels of intimacy and the understanding and the new type of intimacy, like the real intimacy that we experience in recovery, bar none, is better than anything I've experienced outside of recovery, and certainly didn't even fathom I could possibly experience before recovery, you know. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Los Angeles. My childhood I spent in Argentina.
Okay.
You know, and My mom, became a single mom. She separated from my dad and brought us back to Los Angeles. I have a twin brother. So about being intimate, even our relationships with our siblings, with our brothers and sisters. I'm more intimate today, post recovery. I'm more intimate today than I ever was. I didn't want my mother to know what I was doing. I didn't want anybody to know what I was doing. As a matter of fact, even when they found out what I was doing, I was like, I was frozen. So I thought they didn't know me. I see how you brought up a few points, intimate of people that you meet in. Like people telling me their life story, people telling me, trusting me with their guarded secrets, and not that it means anything, but it means something that, that I'm transparent. So I'm able to let go, and with that I can show some trust. I don't want to know everything, but sometimes people find a need to go ahead and tell me things. I find the need to tell somebody. I have a guard, spiritual mentor, and I'm able to tell him stuff that I don't even tell my parents. I'm able to tell him stuff that I don't tell my brother. But in doing so, I notice that my relationship with my brothers have changed. That well, this guy didn't judge me. Why would I think my twin brother would judge me? So I'm able to tell my twin brother stuff. In relationships, even in recovery, as there are certain things that I wouldn't say. You're right. When I met you, I was married and met my wife, my ex-wife, my first ex-wife, and it's funny we're friends today. We remain friends. A while, 12 years and 16 years into our marriage, I wanted to go a different direction, and I gotta tell you, after going through the divorce and everything, all the stuff, we realized that, I have a deep care for this woman, and I never want to go ahead and, let it be anything else. So today I can talk to her. I talked to her about my recent relationship. I talked to her about, it's funny, she calls me every 2 weeks, like every now and again. She says, so how's your relationship going? And I go, okay,
And she's excited for you.
She's very excited for me. And, talk about being intimate, these are the things that we get when we go ahead and stop this running and gunning, thinking that that's the way we need to live life. I'm so grateful that I found recovery in the sense that I'm able to live a life that I never thought I could. And relationships are new.
I heard somebody say that that her bottom was when she stopped loving things and using people. That she had it backwards. That it was that she's supposed to love people and use things. And that's how I love when you hear something and your eyes widen and you go, oh my God, me. That's another way we experience intimacy before we even know what it is that we're experiencing is listening to somebody else mirror to us, them too. They experience something, only they're past to a point where they have the insight to be able to articulate it with an obvious lack of a charge there. And then they're laughing and they're transparent, like you're saying, and they go, here, look into my life. Let me tell you anything. You find yourself here. And like you're able to look into their life because they're so open to share of themselves that they show you that you don't need to be guarded. They show you that you don't need to be, that you can be vulnerable, and that vulnerable isn't like a gateway to death, to being humiliated, to being manipulated, to being judged, to being abandoned. These are the things I thought would happen if I was
let somebody in.
Oh my God, and I watch my parents, and I mean, for two people who slept in the same room, they couldn't be further apart. I cannot in any way, shape, or form believe that they knew each other. They didn't even know themselves.
You say that, but I know that in my experience, I've fallen into that. I've fallen into, I mean, like I said, part of my, discovery or, part of my life is, my second, venture into marriage, I mean, we slept in the same room and we didn't even know each other. We didn't know what was in each other's head, I noticed that, but we don't start, realizing this until we start digging deep. And so until we start looking at somebody explaining being transparent with us and, oh wow, I do that.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I do that. And kind of better explains our life and our behavior. And this is what recovery's given me.
Right.
The ability to go ahead and open up and be better, relationships, I'm great for your friendship, we're able to talk immensely about, whatever.
We're super close, and I'm very grateful for that too. And that's the thing, we all walk around before we really open up and go deep with this armor on, and we're so convincing with this like formalized outer self that nobody even knows that if they would have just gotten to know that person, they would have a whole different experience. Like so much of our judgments, right, are these ideas. We just sum up somebody based on our own ideas, our own interpretation, our own projections, right? And we think we know them. And then we get to know them, and we are always surprised that what we thought the person would be about, we were wrong. I mean, tell me you didn't feel that way about me. We got to know each other, and we're like, oh, I didn't realize you would be like that.
Yeah.
And here you were, somebody that I could. See, I don't even know that we would have been able to get so close before, because we were each going through our own life lessons to get to a place of being able to share like that anyway. Like, can't say any time sooner. But it's interesting, like you're 22 years sober, you're 56 years old, right? I'm 25 years sober, I'm 52 years old. And I look back over 5 decades of getting to a place of being comfortable in my own skin to be able to share with somebody else and let them in and it's interesting. We talk about in recovery the emphasis, the need for us to do like inquiry and really look at ourselves and look at our part and find out what's driving the bus and find out what tools we're running on that are really character defects. Like, what is it that's really going? And it seems like such like either a one-on-one with a mentor or just really just like by ourselves with God, deep dives, whether you're with a therapist or you go to 12-step or you're in church and you're in like whatever you're doing, right? But there's something about addicts and alcoholics joining with each other, focus on the solution, and I don't know, there's something about loving other people and then realizing you're just like them and then you love yourself. There's something about the camaraderie of the fellowship of people healing with a common problem and a common solution. There's something about that just allows people to be closer to each other than they would be able to out necessarily in the world, where maybe they still feel like they need to be a little bit more careful with what they show the world.
I guess they share a common solution. I know that I needed to go through my relationships and my stumbling through, intimacy to get to where I am today. But one of the biggest things that I found is that when I spent some time by myself, when I spent time with realizing that, I gotta like myself. I really have to really love myself before I can go ahead and get out there and love anybody else, before I can like somebody else. And I appreciate, I mean, when you, then you start going into the similarities, right? And here's two people that, met each other a long time ago, and then we start thinking, oh wow, you were in New York in 1986, I was in New York in 1986, and we're able to talk about that
fair,
experience.
I was in New York for 30 years, so there's a lot of time to pull, but
I only spent a year in New York, but you happen to be there,
it's crazy.
And we got something, else to talk about. New York has left me with an impression that I can never forget, I like that, and then the same thing with Los Angeles. Los Angeles, is my hometown. It's where I was born, and then, but more than anything, Las Vegas has been my home, and I built a life here, and to be comfortable in your own skin, and I don't think that's a matter that happens overnight. I think a lot of people go ahead and sober up, and we tell them, oh, we want to get comfortable in our own skin. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Sorry, because that's gonna take a while before we do that. Because I drank and drug to be comfortable in my own skin. So hence it was my solution. Hence it was my okay. This is how I get comfortable. And I'm able to have the relationship with train wrecks, of course,
Yeah. Well into recovery. I mean,
well,
that's a lot of
Good
lessons.
point.
There's a lot of lessons that needed to be learned. I was extremely codependent, and needing to let go of a lot of really toxic spiritually, spiritual ego type things. One of the things that's also been huge is maybe I wasn't always hiding everything. There were select moments that I would open up to the wrong people at the wrong time, but I would also be using my victim story to try to get somebody to feel sorry for me, and I would feel like a hit of intimacy, but with it was like it was always feel sorry for me. If you feel sorry for me, then you love me. If you love me, then you won't leave me, or the need to be needed. If you need me, if I'm there for you, then you won't leave me, and that's intimacy, like we're in this together. That's intimacy, and two people doing toxic behavior in a toxic situation and calling it love, but even though when I would tell people the stuff like that, I don't know that I ever really felt truly like overall heard, right, before recovery. And, to see somebody really truly be there to hold space for me, to help me to go within, because it's scary by yourself, to go looking at the things you've been running from for so long. To have somebody do that for me really showed me, like she showed me what I could do for someone else. And it took a lot. I mean, obviously I like to talk. Obviously. But listening, I sucked at that for a very, very long time. I wouldn't listen to people. I wouldn't seek to understand them. I wouldn't really listen to them and get to know them and appreciate what they have to say or anything about them. I was so self-centered, so self-absorbed. And now, like, I ask questions. I love these interviews because I get to share about what it brings up for me, and I get to hear what other people have realized and are going through, and we get to celebrate the topic together, right?
Sometimes when
intimately.
And I'm glad you bring that up. Sometimes, you brought up a situation where you're telling somebody your story, and sometimes when I hear somebody's story, when I hear somebody talk to me, and they trust me and they get intimate and they're able to tell me things, and when a magical thing happens, I get to see me in their story. And when I get to see me in their story, I have to think about Now I'm like, oh, okay, my antennas popped up, and now I'm listening, of course, you know.
Of course,
And I'm
because
like,
you're in it.
yeah, I'm in it, you know, and you know, the thing about that is like, did I solve that problem? Did I, you know, how did I overcome that situation? What did I do? And we get to grow together, you know, and we keep on doing that. So I do love that. I love the fellow,
Yeah.
you know, friends,
Yeah.
you know, that I've made. Today I have close friends, you know, and I choose who I want to be with.
Yeah. That's important too.
Yeah.
That's important too. I feel like it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy that, you know, I would tell myself you can't trust anybody. And then what would I do? I would bottle up, I would hide, I would not share of my innermost self. And then, you know, because you can't live like that, then I would find somebody and then I would tell them stuff and I would lean in and I would open myself, and then I would get one of the things I mentioned before, I would get some sort of bad reaction and my mind would go, see? Can't trust anybody. And then I would go back into my little turtle shell, right? And I would act like, I'm fine, I'm good. You know, everything's a show.
But inside you're breaking.
But I'm not. I'm dying on the inside because we're not meant to be separate. We're meant to join. You know, it's crazy that, you know, as we go through our awakening and we look around, how many people are walking around alone. And that's not our natural state. But it's happened so much, and it's happening so much that there's an error in thinking that it, because it's the majority, that it's healthy. You know, like, for example, you see people eating in a way that's like not healthy for their bodies, even when they know they might have a health condition or something like that. That's normal in our society, but it is not normal. You know, it's not normal. We got to this place of disconnect. We got to this place of everybody focused on being human doings. We got so disconnected as a society, right? So with that, and then you just sprinkle some drugs and some alcohol, and then now there's even less intimacy, even though people are seeming to get along better with the alcohol and the drugs, and whatever, but nobody's going and sharing of their innermost self then, you know? It's not to say you do drugs, you don't tell some shit, but because you do. But I don't know how much real, true, you know, intimacy.
Well, you probably would tell one part of it, but you wouldn't tell the whole thing.
And you don't know. You don't even know yourself yet.
Yeah.
So what do you tell? What are you sharing? The what you want somebody to hear, for a reason, right?
Well, when I'm submerged in drugs and alcohol, the last thing I see is that I'm submerged in drugs and alcohol, and that I can't come out.
How old were you when you started using drugs and alcohol?
16.
16.
That I remember. I'm sure I drank before then.
Right. But that's when it was like something that took hold.
I remember, you know, drinking at a high school party, and you know, so I got a guy down half a bottle of vodka or Bacardi, and threw it up, and then down the other half, you know, bottle, and I'm like, yeah, that's my jam. This is where I belong.
And how did you feel before alcohol? Like, how did you feel before you started doing those things? Like, did you feel like you were part of?
No, I was totally separate from everybody else. I felt like I didn't belong. I felt like I didn't have any friends. I didn't have anything. And next thing you know, I have a beer at a high school party, and people are talking to me, you know. And, you know, I couldn't even talk to girls, and, you know, next thing you know, I'm drinking, and, you know, I'm Casanova. And it's funny how that works, you know. I mean, and you talk to people that drank, you know, or when they began drinking in high school and stuff like that, it's going to be exactly
So everybody that's drinking and doing drugs is really seeking intimacy, but they're not really knowing how to get there. They feel so alone, they feel so separate, they feel like an alien, they feel like they're either worse than or better than other people, right? We all, as a society, like, nobody's, even magazines are saying you need to have more, you need to be prettier, you need to be stronger, you need to be richer, more successful, And then if you get all that stuff, then you'll maybe be loved for that stuff. It's a trick. It's a trick, and to know that, like, I did all the things I did because being so in my head, so separate in my whole idea, that cut off energetically, that's uncomfortable. But when I feel right with other people, when I'm connected, there's never any irritable, restless discontent. There's never anything in me that's going, oh my God, I need to do something, take something, have something, whatever, right?
I remember drinking because I wanted to belong.
Yeah.
I wanted,
belong.
And holding my liquor because I wanted to belong.
Yeah.
I didn't like losing it.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes it took some extra stuff so I could go ahead and hold my liquor, because if I didn't,
we could say drugs.
Yeah, well,
we could say anything, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sometimes I had to do heavy drugs so I can go ahead and drink more, and because if I didn't, it become a slush.
Yeah.
And intimate went out the
slush.
Door. And it's funny how we just look at all of that. We look at our life, and today, we're in our 50s,
mm-hmm.
and where we'll look at our life, and I'm a guy that I didn't even believe in God when I started recovery, and today I believe in something that's within me that moves me and shapes me and walks with me.
Yeah.
And as I go on, I get these relationships, and like I said, I'm in a beautiful relationship that
she's a beautiful person. You're lucky.
I am lucky. I am so lucky because you're
blessed.
I am blessed, and somebody that listens to me.
Yeah.
Somebody that now we get to be a little bit intimate. Now we get to be, okay. Where do we go from here?
Mm-hmm.
It's and it's made me look at all my other relationships and like, wow,
To be fair, though, right? It wasn't necessarily like anybody, because you're still really good friends with your first wife, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's not like
And I don't hate her at all. I don't hate any of them.
Or anybody, any of your past relationships, right? Because there's, even the recent relationship you had, great person, right? So it's just sometimes it's so interesting. We were talking about this, how sometimes as much of a big heart as anybody has, as much as people want to be close to each other, sometimes that's not the right connection. The puzzle pieces don't fit. And people will get upset because the communication styles aren't compatible, right? Or trust issues, whatever. But what's amazing about it is that, like you said, when you keep seeking like-minded people, because that's what I do. I have the capacity today, not before, but I have the capacity today to be loving to anybody, to really love everybody, maybe not like everybody in the moment because something is getting triggered by ego and I have something coming up. But the goal is to forgive that, to get past it, and to go back to loving everybody neutrally, right? That to me is intimacy, to be able to walk anywhere and love, right? But just because I want to experience loving everybody doesn't mean I can be truly intimate with everybody. Because there are so many people that cannot hear me, and I can't hear some people. I can't really hear them. And it's because we're not supposed to be, But then when you get to a place where you little by little, the people that ask you to help them, or the people that you ask to help you, or the friends you start to accumulate, or the romantic relationships that you get in, and you start to find your tribe. And the level of intimacy is not just because the right person meets the right person. It's because of all the work that we've done up until this point, that when I mean, I can speak for you, but I know for myself that, like, I might be 52 years old, I might be 25 years clean and sober, but I still have little, like, knee-jerk, fight or flight, F this and runs. I still have the, where, the who I think I am comes out and goes, I'm not doing this. Like, no, like whatever, like, psst, no, and, yeah. Yeah. I suspect you have the same issue.
Oh, I don't have those problems.
No. Yeah, but that's just it. There's stuff that will continue to come up to heal, but the greater thing I feel is that connection to a higher power, but the tools and the support system in recovery to be able to talk to people, to be able to look at my part, to be willing to be wrong. These things are necessary to have the kind of humility that lets somebody come in. Like, my house is clean, so to speak. I mean, not literally. My house is clean. Come in. All are welcome. But when we have all that toxic thinking and we're walking around with our skin on inside out, then everything becomes protect. There's no way.
You're going to let anybody in?
No.
And I think that, that's, to that point, took for people like us.
Yeah.
It took till we're in our 50s.
Yeah. Because we're very sick people.
Yeah, I'm speaking for me.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sick, but
I was speaking for you too. Just kidding. Totally kidding.
So I love the fact that I still have those relationships, and I still am able to look at it from a side of love. That I don't have to hate those relationships. I think that they all serve the purpose.
Yeah.
Including my second wife. I think it served the purpose of me realizing what I want in life. Me realizing that, or me excelling.
Yeah.
And to a point where I never imagined I would.
Yeah.
Or the position I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was even great. And I've always been trying. Later on, I try to go ahead and be careful and not put myself out there. But the reason I didn't put myself out there is because I wanted to discover myself a little bit more. And maybe I wasn't ready for a relationship before. Maybe I wasn't ready to take in a relationship or be anything. Maybe I'm ready now. Maybe or maybe it's because, you find a match and you want to go ahead and take it to the nth degree. You want to take it to where it goes, and we both, you find that connection. It's like, it's a magical thing. And sometimes, to somebody that hasn't seen this, that hasn't experienced this, it's going to sound like Martian.
Yeah.
It's going to sound like something, and we were talking about this earlier. Somebody that doesn't know about this they're going to want to gag me, because I don't want to hear this shit, because they're alone,
Yeah.
And when I was alone, I probably didn't want to hear it either.
No.
When I'm, I got nobody to celebrate Valentine's. Oh, gag me, right? I don't want to do any of that, I don't want to,
So now you want to celebrate Valentine's Day?
Probably. Yeah.
Okay,
of course,
well, with that.
Of course,
With that, we're going to go to break. So please remember that the opinions expressed here are strictly those of the people who gave them and do not represent any 12-step program or are meant to replace your own intuition or professional medical advice. So we're going to take a quick break and we'll see you in a bit. Thank you. The meeting space is a facility with over 100 weekly recovery meetings for addiction from alcohol, drugs, sex, food, gambling, codependency, and PTSD. When someone is scared to go to their first meeting,
We walk them through the process, ask them and answer questions to assuage their concerns. Many are court-ordered to attend, and we provide free court papers and teach them the process. Our glass-enclosed, soundproof children's playroom enables parents to be in a meeting while watching their children. We have healing workshops, craft fairs, and special authors who come to teach and sit with our fellowships. During COVID, we were declared an essential business by the County Commissioner's Office. We were kept open so that we can continue our daily work with traumatized chronic relapsers and those who would have used alcohol or drugs in isolation. Local businesses rent our space as well to financially help with this mission, and they get to have a great location for their business meeting or training. The recovery store in the center of our facility provides literature, clothing, medallions, and custom gifts to encourage, aid in, and celebrate a person's recovery from alcohol, drugs, PTSD, or unhealthy behaviors. Both the recovery store and the meeting space are open every day, including holidays. Saving lives, educating the community, reducing social stigma, providing a safe place for people to heal. Our nonprofit is supported entirely by donations by people like you who want everyone to have a place to go to heal.
Welcome back to the Real Recovery Show. Before the break, we were talking about relationships and nauseating people with talks about romantic relationships and happiness and intimacy. But now we're going to take it and we're going to go and we're going to talk about love and forgiveness and learning what our parts are and changing and making amends to people, you know, like really making the relationships right or cleaning up our own side of the street. Like this act in recovery goes so far to create a healthier environment for true intimacy to form. It's not to say that if we look at our part and we make an amends to somebody that they're going to snap back and go, thank God, now we could be so close.
Yeah, no.
But before we do that, there's such the potential for resentments towards us for whatever our part was, resentments towards them for whatever we feel we've been wronged, and we can go an entire lifetime holding these resentments, these blocks to intimacy, and never, ever know the other person again. Even if we see them at family events, even if we live with them, you know, holding on to these big, huge judgments and resentments. It could be a spouse, it could be your own kid, it could be your siblings, it could be your parents, grandparents, any uncle, cousins, it could be anything, friends, you know, it could be anything. And when we're holding these judgments about other people, we're holding these judgments about ourselves. And so how do we get from there? How do we get from being toxic toward, when we think about another person, holding these judgments, these resentments, or feeling this inherent shame and guilt because we feel horrible, right? And we know they might have resentments towards us. It's like every time we think about them, every time we think of that we miss them, right? Or we think of them and we get a cringe, you know, and we're like, oh, that's that person's so wrong. And we carry that tension, that toxicity for years. And some people will take it to their grave.
Yes, they will.
Because they need to be right and they need to be just, you know, and what they're doing is they're keeping themselves, we keep ourselves in the darkness, and we never knew them.
When you talk about like that, when you talk about this realization about old relationships and stuff like that, I think about my mother. You know? And my mother, you know, I don't know what it was, you know, but she had a big resentment with her sister, you know, and she took that all the way to the grave. You know, it's funny because when either one of them was sick and they had to be sometime in the hospital, they were by each other's bedside. But any other time, it was like, you know.
They didn't have the tools though, Nelson.
Exactly. So that's what I want to go ahead and bring up.
Yeah.
That's what I want to realize, you know, that my mother did not have the tools to communicate. Hence, she was not able to give me any tools for me
Right.
to communicate, for me to go ahead and, she's given me a lot of tools, she's given me a lot of life, she's given me a lot of things. But when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to bringing, forgiveness, while she may have forgiven some people, there are some people that she never did forgive, and maybe my father was one of them.
I feel the same way about my mom. I feel like my mom is still holding on to stuff.
Yeah, and well after he died, my dad died, there was no way she was going to forgive him. And this is why
that hurts us.
Exactly.
We don't even realize how toxic that is for us to hold something against somebody like that, to not make peace with it.
There.
Right.
We don't need to show your kids that. And I realize that, I'm holding resentments, with family members, I mean, and like, what am I doing? I got the tools to let this thing go. What am I doing?
Right.
What's the example I'm going to set for my siblings, not my siblings, my kids?
Yeah.
What's the example that or even my siblings, even my brothers and sisters, I want to go ahead and set some kind of example, my friends, hey, this is what I walked through. We don't have to go ahead and go a lifetime hating people, hating our family because they're this or they're that, accept them for who they are. Somebody told me not too long ago, what, I was talking about, a family member, and I was saying how much I hate this character that they had, and she said, well, wow, you're not even accepting them, you want them to accept you, but you're not even taking a 1 inch forward to accept them. So like, it kind of makes me look at, okay, am I using my tools today?
Yeah.
Am I being selective with my tools? That's another thing that we do in recovery.
Yeah.
But I got all of this stuff.
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like I'm being selective with who I want to use the tools with. I'm gonna play in my sandbox. Go to yours. And
until they move in with you, or you go into business with them, or anything, right? For me, it's like I've oftentimes, I must confess, being grateful for not living in New York. I felt like, and I understand the whole like don't seek the geographical cure, but I have to admit, I was so riddled with codependency, and I didn't know who I was, and like my role was as the hero in the family, and it was just so toxic that the fact that I moved from New York to Texas and then Texas to Las Vegas, it gave enough distance, physical distance, for me to be able to detach enough to find out who I am outside of the family. Because it's funny, we talk about this during the holidays, like how do you deal with family in the holidays when you go home and they will remember you without recovery. They talk to you as if you don't have recovery. And so the part of the mind that's not recovered responds,
without recovery.
Without recovery, and so it's again another opportunity to level up, to go and to just use tools to bookend. Bookending is when you talk to somebody in recovery before you go to a thing, maybe even at it, but you talk to them after. And so it allows the mind to stay in a recovery-focused, solution-oriented way, going to an event that there's going to be drinking or drugs or family members or all of it, at it, right? And so there are tools we learn on how to shift and to forgive them for not having the tools. Like my mom, I forgave my mom for not being my mom. I had to really, first, before forgiving her, I needed to seek to understand her, and I had to ask myself a really good question. Do I really feel like I turned out much better? I swore I wasn't going to be like her. I swore I wasn't going to be like my dad. And I took all of it. I bumped their heads together and became it. I did all of it. I did her addictions and his addictions, like together, in one person. I did that. And so like, who am I to think, what, because I'm sober now, right? That I'm like better or anything? It's not.
That's the trap we fall into when we come into sobriety. I fell into that trap. I'm 2 years sober, and
You should love me.
I'm
so lovable.
Yeah, but I fell into a trap that I became this judgmental person, this self-righteous idiot. And it's funny. The longer you're sober, the less judgment you have. And when it looks like it would be the opposite, right?
We hope you do.
But
yeah.
In recovery, if you're working any kind of recovery, if you care about your recovery, I think you try to go. You smash the ego. You're more humble, more. Give me more humility. Let me bow down a little bit more. Let me let go all these judgments and all of this stuff, and let people in, and that's how you get have beautiful relationships. So having said all of that, what's in store for the future? Maybe I get a question. What's in store for, okay, so how do we shape this? What I look for. We talk about an ideals list in romantic relationship. We talk about ideals list in relationships.
An ideals list a sex ideals list says these are the things that I used to do that were not healthy in a relationship or in any kind of sexual situation for me. It doesn't say that this is the right and wrong way. It doesn't say it's good or evil. It doesn't label it. It just says this is where I found myself doing this behavior and this wasn't healthy, right? And so what recently my spiritual mentor in recovery suggested, and we talked about, was to look at both sides of it and go, what's the ideal list for what I'm seeking? Can I get real with myself? Can I say, okay, let's say this universe is a loving universe, just for shits and giggles. This is who I feel like I need to be in a relationship to have a healthy relationship. This is who I would need. That person would need to be this way to be in a relationship. Now, they don't need to be perfect, but they do need to be willing to be wrong. I need to be willing to be wrong. There's a huge benefit in that. We have to have an attitude of both wanting to be focused on solutions. There's no oh, you know what, if you love me, you'll accept me, and I'm staying like this, even though it's hurting you. Like that, no. I'd rather be alone. I don't even care, sincerely. But when you have two people in any kind of friendship, relationship, and everybody's focused on the solution, that's healthy, And I know that there's a whole thing about opposites attracting and all that other stuff, and that's great. It may work for other people. I couldn't speak to that, but I needed somebody who had compatible interests. That didn't need, for example, I can't be in a relationship with somebody who needs to travel everywhere all the time. I'm not at a place in my life where I can just pick up and go. I have a lot of responsibilities, right? Being in situations that are mismatched for me, I have learned, and this is the stuff we learn about how we set ourselves up for toxic intimacy, right? Is that I would set myself up by being with people that were not compatible for me. If I'm a talker and I love to listen to people talk and I'm matched up with somebody who's super silent and introverted all the time, there's nothing wrong with that, but it is not good for me. If I'm with somebody and they ice up and get really quiet, I go right up into my head. I try not to, and then I go right up into my head. It is boring to me. I can't engage with somebody. I'm not gonna have my needs met in intimacy that way. So I need a talker. I need somebody who can share,
Mm-hmm.
Learning this stuff about yourself, getting to a place of being willing to be alone. And then coming from choice, not from I have to be with somebody, because that's also a toxic, intimate thing.
That's what it did for me. Yeah. That's what that moment of, it gave me a moment of clarity in relationships.
Yeah.
If there's such a thing.
Yeah.
It gave me a moment to not jump from, and I noticed that, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I noticed that, people have a tendency to go from one relationship to another one.
I did that.
I'm sure that I did that too. But we never
I had some gaps, but I did that. I did not want to be alone.
Never give ourselves that moment to go ahead and be alone. I think that, you know, I was really, really fortunate that, you know, after my second marriage, and, I was able to go ahead and really,
Which
really
is such an
be alone.
interesting idea. The willingness to be alone so that you can have true intimacy. Because when we're not willing to be alone, then everything becomes like fear-based. I cling and whatever, and it comes from a place of no choice.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're willing to be alone, now we're going to selectively choose what resonates and feels like a yes for us. And if it feels like a yes, we're going to be more relaxed and more open and interested and invested to want to share of ourselves and to listen to other people share of themselves. But when we're like constantly going and needing somebody else, and I've gone through this so I can speak from my own experience, but when I'm constantly going and trying to be in a relationship, trying too hard, then I'll get into a relationship that has flags. I'll stay in the relationship.
Flags, what's that?
I'll stay in the relationship because it's my precious, from Lord of the Rings. Oh my God, it's the thing I need, don't you know, right? And I will have no real intimacy. You know what I'm saying? There will be no real freedom and choice and a sense of like, yes, because it needs to be a yes for me to be that, wanting to be that close to a person that I want to know all the things, that I want to hear their soul, right? I have to want to be that close to a person to want to hear their soul. And I'm not going to want to if I am like so like, wanting to believe that I need to be in a relationship. So I'll say this last thing because I have so much coming up about this. I'm sorry. But
I digress.
If I go from relationship to relationship and I don't actually get the real idea of the value of being alone, right? And taking care of myself, right? I will believe my problem is I'm not in a relationship. I'll get in a relationship and I'll believe my problem is the relationship. So then I will go, should I be in it? Should I not be in it? Should I be in it? Should I not be in it? Should I be in it? Should I not be in it? And then we'll break up. And I'll be alone, which is what I thought I needed. But now I'm lonely. But now what's next? Who's the next person?
Who's your next victim?
And now I'm like, no, being single isn't my next hostage. Being single isn't it. I gotta find the right person. So then I go and I look for another person. And then I go, okay, I don't really feel like this is a yes, but good enough because we have this in common or that, and it's good enough. Not really understanding that I can even have something that's even healthy for me. I overlook the thing. I get in a relationship. Now should I be in it? Should I not be in it? Should I be in it? Should I not be in it? And like, I have done that toxic intimacy dance for years. And like, now it's like in this time, this grayer haired time of my life, wanting to just have things that I feel are yes in my life. And that gift of being able to come from choice is because we have so many people around us. We have so many friends in recovery. We have such a family, a healthier, solution-oriented, support each other's highest good, intimate family, that so much of my needs get met in my interacting in that way, helping people, being helped, sharing, whatever, joining in, celebrating, recovery.
I think that's what helped. That helped in my
It's
situation.
not all or nothing, black or white anymore.
Yeah.
It's not like all alone in her little closet or her head up somebody's butt in a relationship.
I wasn't alone. I realized that I wasn't alone. As a matter of fact, I remember I had a housewarming divorce party, and not to be morbid or anything like that, just open up the house, who's coming?
Yeah.
And the amount of love that was shown was just like, fuck, I'm not alone, And it helped me, go ahead and get to that point where I don't have to go ahead and there's a power of choice, that I can have, I can really be picky as, a thing, or and try not to fall into a relationship that I don't want to be in. And if I'm in, try and catch it, fast enough to, so I don't hurt both the people. Sometimes, we don't listen to our intuition. I'm famous for that.
Yeah.
And you want to give. It's not about giving chances or anything like that. For me, it was just like, you don't want to be alone.
When we don't listen to our intuition, we can't really know whether we should be staying or going. We can't really know intuitively how to find solutions to problems that come up. We are operating in the dark a little bit, and then we'll stay in situations that may not be working and hurt the other person, and we don't want to do that, but we don't realize sometimes when that happens. I feel like some of our old programming and our traumas from our childhood are still there, that they come up, and they may not be as loud, but old programming says this is what we do, this is what we're supposed to be doing, and we have to keep leveling up. And this is my opinion. I'm curious what you think about this. I think that's what relationships are for. I feel like on some level we have this need to be connected because we're really one. Spoiler alert. But we have this draw towards each other, this magnetic draw towards being with people, right? But it's going to trigger stuff up. And so we get motivated to heal the stuff that comes up because we don't want to lose the connections that we have. And that's one of the biggest motivator, is while we are attracted to the dangling intimate carrot, we see how we could mess it up, and then we go, crap, I need to look at something again. For me, I'll just say it's my experience. I'm curious about yours. Like, it really makes me level up, because if I say I really want intimacy, I say I really want closeness, I say I really want love, I say I really want peace, but I let myself be selective about what I heal, then I don't get to experience what I really want. So it motivates me. What do you think?
I think, it resonates, today, we've gone through so much, I think being open is a major thing. I think the being humble enough to go ahead and learn or be humble, admit when you're wrong, right? That was a big one. And watch me fail. Be willing to fail. Not fail and then try to hide it.
Or stay there.
Well, the thing is, this is what I did. And today, that growth comes from that, from feeling the pain, or trying to dig deep and get to causes and conditions. What is it that I'm seeking? What is it that I'm looking for? What is it that's making me do these actions? What is it that is what's driving me? That too. What's making me want to draw me to this thing that feels I'll be honest with you, it feels like unique,
like another world.
Yeah, the one that we didn't understand so many times, and do we understand that?
The one that I would have sought in drugs.
What's the difference now? Well, again, there you go. I know that my brother did not understand why I did drugs. My twin brother did not understand why I smoked pot. He didn't understand. Wow, how can you like this shit? And I guess it's a good analogy right there. Who's gonna understand? When you're in love, or
you can't understand. Yeah, you can't. All of a sudden, as we heal, more makes sense that we might have poo-pooed before. So we're at the end of the hour, believe it or not.
Oh wow!
Yes, look how quick that went. And so, do you have anything that maybe you want to say to anybody who's listening that maybe is guarded and feeling alone about what they can experience if they open up and trust the process in recovery?
The biggest thing is to don't give up. After 22 years in recovery, I wouldn't change a day. I wouldn't change a single day. Some of the gifts that I've gotten just in the last few months are, amazing. Don't give up. Don't give up on the recovery. Don't give up on, don't drink no matter what. It's, when things seem low, you think, it's the end of the world. But, it's not.
No.
It's not at all. And if I had to wait another 22 years for what I got today, then you know what? Here I am.
Yeah, because you don't know what it is that you're experiencing now that's going to make a big difference later. So stay tuned. And thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me on the show. I love you very much, and I'm very grateful that you were able to do that. And thank you. If you'd like to be on a future episode, please message me on Facebook. It's the quickest way to get me, or fill out a contact form or intake form on the website, themeetingspace.com. And please share this with anybody and let them know if you like the show, like it and everything. So anyway, thank you very much, and I will see you next week.
Thank you.